When taking over his father's company, the millionaire disguises himself as a janitor to get to know his employees up close. However, when he uncovers the manager's plan involving his daughter, he is left utterly horrified. Matthew felt the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders as he stared at his father's empty office. Isaac had been a visionary, determined, resilient, and capable of building a real estate empire from scratch. His tragic death in a car accident left not only a void in Matthew's life, but also in the very company Isaac had poured his soul into. At 43, Matthew suddenly found himself the unexpected heir to a colossal organization, a role he had never truly prepared for. Memories flooded his mind. He could still see himself as a young boy, trailing behind his father on visits to the office. Isaac would proudly show him every building, every project, talking with a spark in his eyes about a future where Matthew would one day lead. But reality had played out differently. Matthew had chosen a quieter life, far from the high-stakes world of business. Now, that peaceful life felt like a distant dream, as the crushing responsibility of leadership bore down on him. Yet it wasn't just grief for his father that weighed on Matthew. He still carried the pain of losing Bianca, his wife, who had tragically passed away giving birth to their daughter, Luciana. Since then, he had lived as a widower, dedicating himself to raising Luciana. Now he faced the challenge of not only confronting his own sorrow, but stepping into Isaac's shoes to preserve the legacy his father had built. One restless night, an idea struck him. Bold, unconventional, perhaps even a little absurd. He would disguise himself as a janitor in his own company. He wanted to see the organization from a completely different perspective, to uncover the truth of what was happening behind the polished facades and corporate smiles. To make it happen, he turned to Raquel, his loyal housekeeper. When Matthew confided his plan, Raquel, ever pragmatic and unflappable, was stunned into silence. But her unwavering loyalty to him won out, and she agreed to teach him the ins and outs of the janitorial world. For someone who had never needed to worry about cleaning supplies or scrubbing floors, learning the ropes was no easy feat. Under Raquel's patient but firm guidance, Matthew embarked on an intensive crash course. There were plenty of mishaps along the way, spilled buckets, botched dusting jobs, but their shared laughter lightened the burden. Raquel couldn't help but admire his determination, even as she teased him for his clumsy efforts. Every scrub and sweep was a humbling lesson, and Matthew knew this was only the beginning of a much greater journey. Meanwhile, Luciana, now 18, was carving out her own path in the company as an intern. But something didn't sit right with her. She noticed whispers in the corridors, suspicious glances, and hushed conversations that stopped the moment she entered a room. Luciana's keen intuition told her something was amiss, a shadow hanging over the company that hinted at a larger conspiracy. One evening over dinner, she decided to voice her concerns. "Dad," she said, her tone serious, "I think something strange is going on at the company." Matthew's eyes locked onto hers, a storm of emotions swirling within him. He knew this conversation marked the start of something bigger, a battle that would test them both. What neither of them could foresee was how their search for the truth would unravel secrets that would change their lives forever. "Some employees are plotting something against us," Luciana said, her voice steady, but her worried expression impossible to miss. Matthew listened intently, carefully dissecting each of his daughter's words. He knew that every move from this point on had to be deliberate. "We can't let anyone suspect anything, Luciana," he finally replied, his tone calm and measured. "I'll stick to my role as a janitor, and you need to keep your distance from me at the office. Together, we'll figure out what's going on, but we have to be extremely cautious." Father and daughter devised a straightforward but purposeful plan. They were ready for the storm ahead. Matthew understood that protecting his father's legacy and safeguarding the company's future meant uncovering the truth about the betrayal brewing within. Wearing his janitor's uniform like a shield, he was determined to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. The next morning, Matthew arrived early at the office. Dressed in a modest cleaning uniform, a mix of nerves and resolve churned in his stomach. Walking into a place so familiar, yet now alien under this guise, was surreal. The glass doors, bearing his father's company logo, loomed before him, symbolizing the threshold between the life he'd left behind and the mission he was about to undertake. As he stepped into the gleaming lobby, curious glances followed him, but he didn't falter. He headed straight to the maintenance area, gathered his cleaning supplies, and began pushing his cart through the hallways. The rhythmic squeak of the wheels and the faint smell of cleaning chemicals marked the start of his new reality, one that, strangely enough, brought him closer to the heart of the company than ever before. While arranging supplies on his cart, he heard confident footsteps approaching. Looking up, he spotted Ernesto, the 37-year-old manager of the real estate division. Ernesto was infamous for his arrogance and cold demeanor. His sharp eyes scanned Matthew from head to toe, his expression laced with disdain. "You must be the new janitor," Ernesto said, a mocking smile curling his lips. "I'm Ernesto, the manager here. I hope you know what you're doing. This place doesn't tolerate incompetence." Matthew took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Yes, Mr. Ernesto. I'll do my best to meet expectations," he replied calmly. Ernesto chuckled, the sound grating and dismissive. "You'd better. After all, a lowly cleaner like you could never comprehend what it takes to hold a position like mine. Some people are just born to deal with other people's messes." A flicker of anger ignited within Matthew, but he buried it quickly, forcing a polite smile. "Life has a funny way of turning tables, Mr. Ernesto. Those who are up today might find themselves down tomorrow." Ernesto's eyes narrowed, his smirk fading into a scowl. "Is that a threat, janitor?" he snapped. "Not at all, sir. Just an observation," Matthew replied, his humility deliberate. Ernesto shrugged, muttering something under his breath about how this cleaner wouldn't last long, before striding away. Matthew watched him go, each step strengthening his resolve. There was something off about Ernesto's arrogance, a smugness that hinted at secrets worth uncovering. But for now, Matthew knew he needed to stay in character and blend in. His mission was just beginning. Each swipe of the rag across the tables and every tile scrubbed on the gleaming floors only strengthened Matthew's resolve. He was getting closer to the truth, closer than anyone could suspect. His first day as a janitor was a whirlwind of learning and vigilance. Hours were spent wiping desks, sweeping hallways, and mopping floors, all while keeping a sharp eye on the office dynamics. He studied the employees' reactions to his presence. Some ignored him, others gave curious glances, but none seemed to suspect his true identity. Exhausted yet oddly accomplished, Matthew returned home that evening. Luciana was already there, waiting for him with a worried look that deepened the moment he walked through the door. That night, as father and daughter sat down to dinner in the kitchen, the tension between them was palpable. Luciana, ever perceptive, immediately noticed the unease in her father's expression. It wasn't just physical fatigue. Something deeper weighed on him. "How did it go today, Dad?" she asked gently, breaking the silence. Matthew sighed, absently pushing his food around with his fork. "It was tough, Luciana. Ernesto is even more insufferable than I imagined. He strutted around like he owns the place and made it very clear that in his eyes, I'm nothing more than a lowly janitor. It was humiliating, but also revealing." Luciana frowned, her concern evident. "Did he say something specific?" Matthew nodded, his tone turning serious. "Oh, he had plenty to say. He made it clear that someone like me, a cleaner, could never understand what it means to be in a position of power. The arrogance is overwhelming. What's worse, he seems oddly emboldened since your grandfather's passing. Luciana hesitated for a moment, as if the weight of what she was about to share was too much to carry alone. "Dad, there's something I need to tell you about Ernesto." Matthew looked up, catching the gravity in her voice. "What is it, Luciana?" She took a deep breath before speaking. "Ever since Grandpa passed away and Ernesto found out I'm his granddaughter, he's been trying to get close to me. He's acting even more arrogant, but he's also trying to win my trust. It's like he thinks that if he can influence me, he'll have some kind of control over the company." The confession hit Matthew like a punch to the gut. Anger flared within him, but he took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. "This is unacceptable. He's trying to manipulate you for his own gain." Luciana nodded, her vulnerability replaced by determination. "Exactly. We need to find out what he's up to." A heavy silence settled over the kitchen, filled only with the unspoken resolve between them. They knew that taking on Ernesto and uncovering his true intentions would be no small task. But it wasn't just about the company. It was about honoring Isaac's legacy. "I'm certain Ernesto's involved in something shady, Dad," Luciana said firmly. Matthew nodded slowly, his mind already racing with plans. "We'll proceed carefully. No one can know what we're doing until we have solid evidence. I'll stay undercover and monitor his every move. You, on the other hand, need to keep up your work as an intern, but avoid getting too close to him." "Got it, Dad. But how are we supposed to investigate without getting caught?" she asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. "I'll start by paying attention to his interactions and listening in on his conversations. If he's involved in something illegal, he'll leave a trail. I also need to figure out a way to access confidential information without raising suspicion," Matthew replied, his thoughts already mapping out the next steps. Luciana seemed slightly reassured, though the worry lingered on her face. "Just be careful, Dad. Ernesto's dangerous. He won't hesitate to do whatever it takes to protect his position." Matthew reached across the table and squeezed her hand gently. "I know, Luciana, but we'll get through this. Together, we'll protect your grandfather's legacy. This company will stay in the right hands, I promise." With the beginnings of a plan forming, they both felt a spark of resolve amidst the uncertainty. The road ahead would be treacherous, but neither father nor daughter would back down from the fight. They were determined to uncover the truth, whatever it might cost. The next morning, Matthew returned to the office with the same determination as before. Donning his janitor's uniform, he started his routine near Ernesto's office, keeping an ear out for anything useful. He knew Ernesto had a habit of leaving for lunch every day, giving him a narrow window to investigate while the office was empty. Just as expected, Ernesto appeared in the hallway, heading out for lunch. But before leaving, he stopped near Matthew, his smug grin plastered across his face. "So, you're still here, huh?" Ernesto said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Not bad. Let's see how long you last cleaning up after the rest of us." Matthew kept his composure, offering a polite nod, while inside his resolve only hardened. Ernesto had no idea who he was really dealing with, or how close Matthew was to uncovering the truth behind his arrogance. "Cleaner. I want my office spotless. If it's not shining when I get back, you'll regret it. Got it?" Ernesto barked as he adjusted his tie with a sneer. Matthew swallowed his irritation, keeping his voice calm and steady. "Yes, sir. Don't worry, it'll be spotless." He watched Ernesto strut down the hall, the arrogant manager's laughter echoing behind him. The moment the sound faded, Matthew's focus sharpened. This was it, the moment he'd been waiting for. An open door into Ernesto's world of secrets. Matthew moved quickly yet deliberately into the office. His hands worked as a cleaner's should, dusting and wiping surfaces. But his eyes scanned the room for any clue that might expose Ernesto. He opened drawers, sifted through documents, and methodically inspected every inch of the space. His heart raced when he came across a disorganized stack of papers. Hidden within the chaos was a notebook. Flipping it open, Matthew's pulse quickened as he scanned the contents. It was filled with notes about financial transactions, irregular ones. This was exactly what he needed. Grabbing his phone, he snapped photos of each page, careful not to disturb their order. As he scanned the room, he noticed a flash drive plugged into Ernesto's computer. Without hesitation, Matthew slipped it out and pocketed it. Whatever was on that drive might be the key to unraveling Ernesto's schemes. Matthew quickly texted Luciana, "Come to Ernesto's office, urgent." Minutes later, Luciana entered quietly, her face a mix of curiosity and worry. "What did you find, Dad?" she whispered. Matthew handed her the notebook and the flash drive. "This could be it, Luciana. Proof of whatever Ernesto's plotting." Her eyes widened as she flipped through the notebook. She nodded, her determination building. Sitting at Ernesto's desk, she plugged the flash drive into the computer and began scanning its contents. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as file after file opened before her. Suddenly she froze. Her expression shifted to shock and anger. "Dad," she said, her voice low but trembling with intensity, "this is worse than we thought. He's been siphoning money from luxury apartment sales and rentals into his personal accounts. The records are all here. This is fraud, plain and simple." Matthew's heartbeat thundered in his chest. Adrenaline surged through him. "Luciana, we need to gather as much evidence as possible. Photograph everything in that notebook. Copy every file you can from the drive. This is our chance to expose him." Luciana wasted no time. She methodically photographed the most incriminating pages and transferred files from the flash drive onto her own device. The air in the office buzzed with urgency, every sound heightened as they worked. They knew this evidence could bring Ernesto down and safeguard the company's future, but the risk of being caught was ever present. Meanwhile, Matthew resumed cleaning, his movements deliberate and measured to maintain the appearance of normalcy. If someone walked in, nothing could seem out of place. Beneath his calm exterior, tension coiled tight, ready to spring. When they finished, Luciana carefully stashed the notebook in her bag. She turned to Matthew, her expression a mix of anxiety and resolve. "What now, Dad? What's the next step?" Matthew exhaled deeply, the weight of their discovery settling heavily on his shoulders. "Now, we secure everything we've gathered. Ernesto can't suspect a thing. We'll keep observing him, and if we find more evidence, we'll collect it. Once we have enough, we'll take it to the police and present it to the company board." Luciana nodded, still processing the enormity of what they had uncovered. "All right. I'll stay vigilant and avoid Ernesto as much as possible. I can't let him suspect anything." Matthew smiled, pride evident in his eyes. "We're doing the right thing, Luciana. We're protecting your grandfather's legacy. No matter what, we'll make sure this company stays in the right hands." With a plan in place, the father-daughter duo left Ernesto's office, their resolve burning brighter than ever. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but they knew they had what it took to face them head-on. Together they would ensure that justice prevailed. With a clearer plan and evidence in hand, they felt more prepared to confront Ernesto. The road ahead would be long and challenging, but they were ready for whatever lay ahead. The next day, Matthias returned to his usual routine at the company. As always, he cleaned every corner with care, but his mind was racing with thoughts of the next steps. While mopping the main hallway, he noticed a woman who seemed overwhelmed, her brow furrowed, murmuring to herself. Her frustration was obvious. Matthias, always kind-hearted, decided to approach her. "Excuse me, can I help you with something?" he asked humbly, playing the part of an attentive employee. The woman looked up, surprised that someone had noticed her. "Oh, it's nothing. Well, actually, it's Ernesto. As always," she sighed wearily. "He's been unbearable lately." Matthias sensed an opportunity and seized it. "I'm Matthias. I just started working here. What's your name?" Her expression softened, grateful for his interest. "Fernanda. I've been here for years, but lately things have been really tough." Matthias decided to probe further. "Sounds like a tough boss." Fernanda let out a bitter laugh. "That's an understatement. He used to be a good leader. fair and competent. But ever since Mr. Isaac passed away, Ernesto's completely changed. Now all he cares about is money and power. It's like he's become a different person. Matthias adjusted the bucket he was carrying, subtly moving closer. Do you have any idea why he's changed so much? Fernanda glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then lowered her voice. I always thought he had ambitions, but I never imagined he'd become so dishonest. Since Mr. Isaac's death, he's been treating everyone terribly, especially those who challenge him. And there's more. Lately, he's been acting more arrogant toward me, sometimes even threatening. Matthias listened carefully, sensing her honesty. Fernanda could become a key ally. It must be hard to work in those conditions. Fernanda nodded, her expression a mix of sadness and exhaustion. It is, but I need this job. I've worked too hard to get here to just walk away. Matthias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Don't worry, Fernanda. Life has a way of surprising us. Keep doing your best. You never know when things might take a turn for the better. Fernanda looked at him curiously, as if suspecting he knew more than he let on. You talk like you have a hunch about something. He smiled mysteriously. Let's just say I believe everything will fall into place. Fernanda returned his smile, grateful for the encouragement. Thank you, Matthias. I'll try to remember that. With a parting nod, Matthias resumed his work, but he felt a sense of triumph. The conversation with Fernanda had strengthened his resolve. That evening, when he got home, Lucia was waiting eagerly. Dad, how did it go today? Matthias shared the details of his encounter with Fernanda. She confirmed what we suspected. Ernesto's changed a lot since your grandfather passed. All he cares about now is power and money. But I also think we can trust her. Lucia nodded, her determination evident. Then we'll take the next step together. They both understood that the journey ahead would be tough, but they were ready to face Ernesto and protect everything Mr. Isaac had worked so hard to build. Lucia smiled, confident. This is exactly what we needed. Having someone on the inside could change everything. Matthias agreed with conviction. Exactly. But we have to stay vigilant. Ernesto can't suspect anything. We'll keep gathering evidence and make sure we're ready when the time comes to act. With Fernanda on their side and Lucia's unwavering support, Matthias felt more assured than ever. The battle was far from over, but each day brought them closer to justice. That night, their kitchen transformed into a temporary operations center. The table was cluttered with documents, photos, and a laptop. Lucia plugged in the flash drive they had taken from Ernesto's office and began opening the files. Let's go through everything again, Dad. We can't miss anything. Matthias nodded, flipping through the notebook where he had written down the details of financial transactions he had photographed earlier. They began cross-referencing the flash drive's data with the notebook, hunting for inconsistencies and more evidence. Look at this, Dad, Lucia said, pointing to the computer screen. There are massive money transfers to accounts that have nothing to do with the company. Ernesto's clearly funneling funds into these accounts. Matthias's jaw tightened. This is it. This is the proof we need to take him down. Lucia's eyes burned with determination as she replied, Then let's make sure we get it right. Matthias clenched his fists, a surge of anger coursing through him. This man is tearing apart your grandfather's legacy out of sheer greed. We can't let this continue. As they kept going through the documents, Luciana noticed something odd. Dad, look at this invoice. It seems recent. Matthias took the paper and read it carefully. A diamond necklace. That's an extravagant item, even for someone in Ernesto's position. Did he use stolen funds to buy this? Luciana quickly searched online and found the exact necklace. It's outrageously expensive. There's no way someone who's just a company manager could afford it, unless he's stealing money. Matthias's frustration was evident as his voice hardened. He's using company money for his own luxury. It's disgusting. And if he bought this necklace to sway someone at the company... Luciana's face darkened as the same thought crossed her mind. Dad, what if he's trying to impress me with this necklace? Remember what I told you about how he's been trying to get close to me? Matthias closed his eyes for a moment, struggling to keep his emotions in check. This man has no boundaries. He's willing to manipulate and corrupt anyone to get what he wants. We can't let him keep doing this. Luciana's resolve matched her father's. We'll use this to expose him, but we need to be careful. He doesn't know we're watching yet. Matthias took a deep breath, his focus sharpening. All right, let's compile all the evidence we've gathered. We'll do it meticulously, so he won't have a single excuse when we go to the authorities. The two of them spent the night organizing their findings. Every suspicious transaction, incriminating file, and the purchase of the diamond necklace went into a detailed dossier. Luciana snapped high-resolution photos of all the documents and backed up the digital files. We're going to do this right, Matthias said with steely determination. When we go to the police, we'll make sure Ernesto has no way to escape justice. Luciana nodded. We're ready, Dad. We just need to pick the right moment to expose him. When the time comes, Ernesto will learn that karma has a way of catching up. The next morning, Matthias continued his cleaning routine at the office, trying to act as though everything was normal. Meanwhile, Luciana received an unexpected package at home. It was a small velvet box, carefully wrapped. Her heart sank as she opened it and saw the very diamond necklace they had found in Ernesto's records. Luciana's hands trembled with a mix of rage and disgust. Along with the necklace was a handwritten note. For someone as brilliant as these diamonds, I hope you like it. Ernesto. She felt a wave of nausea as she read the words. The audacity made her stomach churn. Without wasting a second, she grabbed the box and note, her heart pounding, and headed straight to the company. She found Matthias mopping the hallways, his expression calm as if it were just another day. Dad, you're not going to believe this, Luciana said, handing him the box and the note. Matthias read the note slowly, his eyes narrowing as anger filled his face. That man thinks he can buy his way out of everything. Luciana nodded, her voice steady despite her fury. This only makes it clearer. We need to expose him now, but we have to move carefully and fast. Matthias took a deep breath, willing himself to remain composed despite his mounting anger. All right, let's call a company meeting to reveal everything. We'll make sure everyone is there and that the evidence is undeniable. They moved to an empty meeting room to finalize their strategy. We'll announce the new owner of the company during the meeting, Matthias suggested. That will be the perfect moment to unmask Ernesto in front of everyone. Luciana agreed, her focus unshakable. We'll prepare a presentation with all the evidence, documents, photos, transaction records, everything. And we'll coordinate with the police so they're ready to step in as soon as we present the proof. The rest of the afternoon was spent refining their plan. They created a flawless presentation that laid out Ernesto's corruption step by step, his suspicious behavior, fraudulent transactions, and finally, the diamond necklace purchase. With everything prepared, they took the final step, inviting the employees to a company-wide meeting. Luciana sent out a notice emphasizing that the new owner of the business would be making an important announcement in the auditorium the next afternoon. Meanwhile, Matthias contacted the police, explaining the situation and sharing the evidence they had compiled. The authorities assured him they would be there, ready to act at the right moment. The stage was set. All that remained was to bring the curtain down on Ernesto's schemes. That night, as they reviewed every detail of the plan one last time, Matthias turned to Luciana. His eyes gleamed with determination. We're ready. Tomorrow, Ernesto will learn that life has a way of coming full circle, he said. Luciana, equally resolute, smiled confidently. We'll do justice for Grandpa and protect the legacy of our family. With everything in place, father and daughter went to bed, knowing that the next day would be decisive. The time had come to confront Ernesto and reveal the truth, trusting that justice would prevail. The next morning, Ernesto strutted through the company halls with his usual air of arrogance. He had received the notice about the meeting and knew that attendance was mandatory, Today, the new owner would be introduced, and Ernesto was already picturing himself earning their favor with his so-called dedication to the company. With his typical authoritative tone, he addressed the employees, issuing orders like a self-appointed king. "I want everyone in the auditorium at exactly 2 p.m. This meeting is crucial, and the new owner will be presented. No excuses for lateness." Behind the scenes, Matthias and Luciana were putting the final touches on their presentation. The tension was thick, but they were determined. They had prepared for this moment, and there was no turning back now. At 2 p.m. sharp, the auditorium was packed. A palpable sense of anticipation filled the room. This was it, the moment the truth would finally come to light. Ernesto sat in the front row, his demeanor a mix of nerves and confidence. He couldn't wait to meet the new boss and solidify his position of power. Luciana, her heart racing, stepped onto the stage. She took a deep breath, steadied herself, and addressed the audience with a clear, firm voice. "Good afternoon, everyone. Today is a very important day for our company. As many of you know, my grandfather Isake passed away recently. He was a remarkable leader who built this company with tremendous effort and dedication," she said, pausing briefly to hold back her emotions. "Today, we have the honor of introducing the company's new owner, someone who will continue my grandfather's legacy." Ernesto leaned forward slightly, a small, expectant smile playing on his lips as he scanned the room, trying to guess who the new owner might be. Luciana maintained her composure and continued. "But before we make the introduction, there are some critical findings we need to share with all of you," she said. With a simple gesture, she activated the projector, displaying the evidence she and Matthias had meticulously gathered. The atmosphere in the room shifted immediately, the tension becoming almost unbearable. "We've uncovered some highly suspicious activities within the company. After a thorough investigation, we found undeniable evidence of fraudulent transactions," Luciana announced, as detailed records appeared on the screen. Ernesto's smug expression began to falter. He furrowed his brow, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. Luciana pressed on, her voice steady and resolute. "These records show the fraudulent transactions orchestrated by Ernesto. He siphoned money from the sales and rentals of luxury apartments into personal accounts. But it doesn't stop there," she added, revealing an image of an extravagant diamond necklace. "This necklace was purchased with company funds, money that Ernesto embezzled. He even had the audacity to attempt to bribe me with it." Gasps and murmurs of outrage rippled through the crowd. Ernesto shot to his feet, his face red with fury. "This is absurd. Who's behind these ridiculous accusations?" he barked. At that moment, Matthias stepped onto the stage, his demeanor calm and composed in stark contrast to Ernesto's outburst. "I am," Matthias said, his voice steady. "And these accusations aren't ridiculous. We have irrefutable proof of your actions." Ernesto's eyes widened in disbelief as he turned to face Matthias. "Who the hell do you think you are?" he spat, his voice dripping with contempt. Matthias met his gaze without flinching and responded firmly, his words ringing out with quiet authority. "I'm Matthias, the new owner of the company, and Luciana's father. I'm here to make sure justice is done," he said, his voice steady. Ernesto's expression shifted from shock to panic. "This can't be true. You're just a janitor." Matthias remained calm, his eyes unwavering. "Life has its twists, Ernesto, and now it's your turn to face the consequences." Udim. At that moment, 2 police officers at the back of the auditorium stepped forward, their presence heavy with authority. "We have a warrant for Ernesto's arrest for embezzlement and fraud," one of the officers announced. Ernesto tried to protest, but the officers quickly closed in, restraining him. "This is a conspiracy. You'll regret this," he shouted as they led him out of the auditorium. Matthias and Luciana exchanged a glance. The employees, initially stunned, now felt a wave of relief and gratitude. "This company will continue to follow the values set by my father and grandfather," Matthias said, his voice resolute. Together, we will ensure that the integrity and success of this company are preserved." The room erupted in applause. Mateus and Luciana shared a quiet moment, a sense of relief washing over them. Justice had been served, and Isaac's legacy was safe. After the meeting, many employees came forward to express their support. Fernanda, in particular, was visibly moved. "Thank you for doing this. You've saved the company and honored Isaac's memory," Fernanda said, tears welling in her eyes. Mateus smiled warmly, a sense of peace settling over him. "We all did it together. Now let's rebuild the company and make sure it thrives." Luciana wrapped her arms around her father, pride and relief radiating from her. "We did it, Dad. We brought justice for Grandpa." With Ernesto gone and operations returning to normal, Mateus knew it was time to reorganize the leadership team. He needed someone competent, trustworthy, and who truly understood the company. The choice was clear: Fernanda. The morning after Ernesto's arrest, Mateus called Fernanda into his new office. She entered a bit nervous, but maintaining a professional demeanor. "Good morning, Fernanda," Mateus began, offering a smile. "Thanks for coming. I wanted to talk to you about the new structure of the company." Fernanda nodded, her anxiety barely contained. "Of course, Mr. Mateus. I'm at your disposal." Mateus gestured for her to sit. "Fernanda, you've been an exemplary and dedicated employee. Throughout the recent chaos, your integrity and commitment to the company have stood out. That's why I'd like to offer you the position of manager." Fernanda was momentarily speechless, stunned by the unexpected offer. "Mr. Mateus, it's an honor. I don't even know what to say." Mateus smiled encouragingly. "You deserve it, Fernanda. I know you'll do an excellent job and help this company continue to thrive. I also believe your leadership will bring a fresh start for all of us." With tears of gratitude in her eyes, Fernanda replied, "Thank you so much, Mr. Mateus. I promise I'll give my best and won't let you down. I'm so grateful for this opportunity." Mateus stood and shook her hand firmly. "I have complete trust in you, Fernanda. Let's work together to ensure my father's legacy stays strong and alive." In the weeks that followed, Mateus and Fernanda worked closely together. What started as a professional relationship began to evolve into a true friendship. Mateus admired Fernanda's dedication, and she respected his vision and commitment to the company. One evening after a long day, they decided to grab dinner together to discuss some ideas for the company's future. Sitting in a quiet restaurant, their conversation flowed easily, touching on topics that went beyond business and veering into more personal matters. "You've been a huge help, Fernanda," Mateus said, raising his glass for a toast. "The company wouldn't be where it is today without you." Fernanda smiled, clinking her glass with his. "Thanks, Mateus, but you were incredible too. The courage you showed, disguising yourself as a janitor to understand the company and expose the corruption, most people would never do that." They both laughed, sharing stories and memories. Over time, their bond grew, built on mutual respect and trust. Fernanda began to see Mateus not only as her boss, but also as a friend, and possibly something more. That night, as they said goodbye, Mateus felt something different. He sensed that something special was blossoming between them, something deeper than just professional. Fernanda, looking into his eyes, felt the same. "Good night, Fernanda. Thanks for this wonderful evening," Mateus said, his smile genuine. "Good night, Mateus. It really was special," Fernanda replied, her heart racing slightly. As time passed, their relationship deepened, both in work and on a personal level. They found strength and support in each other as they led the company into a bright future. The months that followed brought a new dynamic, not only for the company, but also for Mateus and Fernanda's lives. What started as a solid professional partnership slowly transformed into something more profound. They began spending more time together outside of work. Occasional dinners turned into walks in the park, long, meaningful conversations, and weekends exploring the city. Their connection grew naturally, filling a void in both their lives. One afternoon, while strolling through the park, Mateus turned to Fernanda, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "I never imagined I'd find someone as special as you, Fernanda. You've brought light into my life at a time when I needed it the most." Fernanda smiled, gently touching Mateus's hand. "I feel the same way, Mateus. You've shown me that life can take wonderful turns, and I'm so grateful we found each other." As their relationship deepened, Luciana observed with joy. She could see how much happier her father was, and how Fernanda had brought a new spark to his life. One evening during dinner, Luciana decided to share her thoughts. "Dad, I need to tell you something," Luciana started, a smile playing on her lips. "I'm so happy for you and Fernanda. It's clear you both complement each other, and you bring out the best in one another. I fully support whatever is happening between you." Mateus was taken aback, but deeply touched by his daughter's words. "Thank you, Luciana. Your support means the world to me. Fernanda is an incredible person, and I feel like we're building something truly special together." Luciana nodded with a warm smile. "I know, Dad, and seeing you so happy makes me happy too. We're all starting fresh, and that's wonderful." As Mateus and Fernanda's relationship grew stronger, the company also began to thrive under their new leadership. With Mateus at the helm and Fernanda as the manager, the atmosphere in the company changed completely. Transparency, trust, and respect became the cornerstones of the new management style. The employees, inspired by Mateus and Fernanda's example, started working with renewed dedication and enthusiasm. Productivity soared, and clients began to notice the improvement in the quality of services. Projects that had stalled were revived with new energy, and fresh business opportunities began to arise. Mateus and Fernanda spent long hours in the office, discussing strategies, planning new projects, and ensuring every team member felt valued and heard. Their collaboration was seamless, and the excellent results the company started seeing were a testament to their teamwork. During a meeting with the team, Mateus spoke proudly. "I want to thank each one of you for your hard work and dedication. We're rebuilding this company together, and I'm confident the future will be bright for all of us." Fernanda added with a warm smile, "This company is like a family, and we're committed to making sure every one of you feels part of it. Let's continue working together and achieving great things." The applause echoed in the meeting room, and Mateus and Fernanda exchanged a glance, knowing they were on the right path. The company was not just recovering, but thriving. In their personal lives, Mateus and Fernanda supported each other, finding comfort and happiness in the little moments they shared. Together, they discovered that love could blossom in the most unexpected of times, and that second chances were incredibly valuable. Over time, their relationship became an inspiration to everyone around them. They showed that with courage, integrity, and love, any challenge could be overcome, and happiness and success were possible. As the company flourished and Mateus and Fernanda's romance grew stronger, the consequences for Ernesto's actions were finally unfolding. After a thorough and relentless investigation, all the evidence against him was presented in court. The verdict came swiftly. Ernesto was sentenced to several years in prison, but due to his cooperative attitude during the trial and his clean record, the judge decided to reduce his sentence, allowing him to serve part of it through community service. This led to Ernesto working as a street cleaner and maintaining public spaces in the city. In his community service uniform, Ernesto wandered down the streets, pushing a cleaning cart. Each sweep of the broom, every scrub of the rag, was a bitter reminder of his past arrogance and greed. As he removed graffiti and picked up trash, dark thoughts consumed him. "How could I have been so blind?" he muttered to himself while working. He remembered the smug words he had directed at Mateus, unaware that Mateus was the new owner of the company. "I thought I was in charge, that I could do whatever I wanted. And now, here I am, cleaning the streets." The workdays were long and exhausting. Ernesto often found himself alone with his thoughts, revisiting every wrong decision and realizing the damage his actions had caused, not just to him, but to others. He remembered trying to bribe Luciana with the diamond necklace and how his excessive ambition had led to his downfall. "I deserve this," he quietly admitted, staring at his hands, rough and calloused. "I was greedy, arrogant, selfish. I only saw the value in money and power, not in the people around me." While Ernesto sank deeper into his regret, the company he had tried to destroy was flourishing. Under Mateus and Fernanda's leadership, the business not only recovered but also thrived. New and innovative projects were launched, employee morale was at an all-time high, and the company's reputation in the market was impeccable. With Luciana and all the committed employees by their side, Mateus and Fernanda managed to create a work environment built on trust, respect, and collaboration. They made sure every team member felt valued and essential to the company's success. The company grew exponentially, attracting new clients and properties. Meanwhile, Matthias, knowing that justice had been served, finally had time to reflect on everything he had been through. He remembered the day he inherited the company from his father, the challenges he faced at the beginning, and the unexpected turns life had taken. The decision to disguise himself as a cleaner now seemed like a distant memory, but it had been that very act that triggered so many profound changes in his life and the company. Matthias sat in his office, gazing out at the city skyline. The legacy of his father and grandfather was secured, and he felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing he had kept his promise to protect the company. He thought about how much he had grown as a person throughout this journey. From an insecure man, unsure of his abilities, to a confident, respected leader. Suddenly, a soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Fernanda entered, smiling. "Mateus, everything's set for the afternoon meeting. How are you feeling?" she asked with a look full of warmth. Mateus stood up and walked over to her, gently taking her hands. "I feel incredible. All of this has been possible thanks to you and Luciana. And speaking of feelings, there's something I need to talk to you about." Fernanda looked at him, curious but with a smile full of hope. "What is it?" she asked, unable to hide her anticipation. Matthias took a deep breath, looking her in the eyes with an intensity he had never shown before. "Fernanda, you've brought joy and balance to my life in a way I never imagined. You've been by my side through the toughest times and celebrated the victories with me. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Fernanda stood speechless, tears welling up in her eyes. "Matthias, I love you too. I accept with all my heart." Matthias embraced her, feeling a happiness so profound it was indescribable. The wedding was quickly planned, with the help of Luciana and their closest friends. The ceremony was simple but full of love and joy, reflecting the essence of the bond between Matthias and Fernanda. And so, with the support of Luciana and all the company's employees, Matthias and Fernanda began a new chapter of their lives, ready to face the future together, with love and determination. Did you enjoy today's story? Then subscribe to the channel, leave a like and share it with your friends. See you in the next video.